Imaginary is a 2024 movie from Blumhouse that recently came out. And if you do not know that this movie exists or was in theaters, I won't blame you. Honestly, I had forgotten this movie was coming out. Blumhouse recently made a fucking ton of money with their movie Five Nights at Freddy's, which is based on the acclaimed video game of the same name. And that movie, while having a plot that was all over the place, very generic, basic characters to fill the plot, really ridiculous twist, somehow made a ton of fucking money. A lot of people want to see this movie. It was nothing impressive, but Blumhouse cashed in with it. It's probably one of the worst movies of last year that was a box office success. And Blumhouse's recent entries like Night Swim and now Imaginary are both very similar to Five Nights at Freddy's, but they don't have that appeal or popularity, which is kind of funny because they're not based on a video game. So movies like this are equally bad, but it just disappeared, where that movie did not. Now, Imaginary is such a ridiculous movie, and it's seriously so hard to believe this movie came out in 2024, not 2004. Like, it's Madam Web levels of terrible. Maybe not that bad, but it's just so stupid, so lacking in any kind of remote possibility where you can take it seriously. I was honestly laughing at the reveals, and especially some of the designs of the monsters in this movie. Now, let's take things back a notch and explain what the plot of this quote-unquote movie, Imaginary, is. Film stars DeWanda Wise, who's giving a great performance, as great as she can give, as a mother who moves into this new house with her husband, her adopted daughters, one of whom is a little girl and one of them is a teenager. And once they move into this house, the little girl finds a teddy bear in the basement, which she named Chauncey, and she treats her like an imaginary friend, or him, or whatever the bear is. It's a bear. And this is where the movie's honestly a bit hilarious. I mean, the whole fucking thing is hilarious, but it just gradually gets so ridiculous you can't help but laugh. By the way, I would see this with a crowd. I mean, I think it's out of theaters by now, but it is so fucking funny to see with the crowd just because of how fucking ridiculous it is. See, this movie isn't really that scary, and a lot of the stuff that should constitute for horror is mostly just a little girl being a dick and being like a stereotypical little girl in a horror movie. Now, I honestly feel bad for people who thought this movie was boring, because I will admit, going into this film, I did expect it to suck, and really, there's nothing special, or it's just incredibly stupid and generic. But having said that, I think this movie's so over the top and goofy, it is honestly very entertaining in ways. Most of the main characters, like the teenage girl who doesn't like her stepmom, the little girl who seems all sweet and innocent until she starts talking to her teddy bear, they're such fucking generic horror trope characters. Like, you've seen this little girl so many times in a horror movie. The particular, movie reminded me of Poltergeist, where a family lives in a perfect suburbia that just happens to be plagued by some kind of nightmare scenario. However, this movie doesn't have any of that nightmare stuff or, creepy stuff, and the stuff that should pass for nightmarish is just hilarious when you think about it. Like, characters with dark black bug eyes and a dream sequence that seriously felt like something out of 1954's Killers from Space. It's that bad in the VFX department. But I digress. It really is just such a silly movie with a somewhat interesting concept of an evil imaginary friend, but it gets so lost in its sauce and honestly forgets to be scary, forgets to have a plot that really works. Everything's just so cliche, from the introduction of Betty Buckley's character, who is a concerned old lady neighbor, to the way the little girl interacts with their teddy bear, to the way the stepmom treats everything like it's so sweet until something obviously very spooky happens. Like, you find out the girl hasn't even been communicating with a bear, but no, apparently she's just talking a blank air. I mean, that should be creepy, but the way this movie handles it, it's just hilarious. They introduce this psychologist or psychiatrist, whatever, halfway through the movie. She's just introduced randomly and delivers this line so dramatically where she goes, "Oh, this little girl hasn't been talking to anyone. She's just talking to nothing. You think she's talking to a bear?" And it's just hilarious for some reason, because they treat this like this is the scariest thing in the movie, but we're like, okay, so fucking what? We are waiting for horror. Then there's the bitchy stepdaughter who doesn't get along with her stepmom, and it's just hilarious, especially because every interaction with them is so unnecessarily fucking contrived to have them not like each other. Like, when the stepmom sees her stepdaughter flirting with her neighbor, who's immediately like, "Oh, go drinking with me, I know some cool bars," and the stepmom like runs fucking outside, and she's like, "Oh, she isn't 18 yet." And then they're fighting because, "Oh, this is the only boy who's shown interest in me, mom. Why don't you care, stepmom? It's like, why don't you let me have a good life?" It's just so cliche. And then later, the boyfriend-ish character comes over to hang out with the teenage sister, and the little girl starts acting like a total creep. She looks at the boyfriend character and she goes, "Chauncey doesn't like you. Chauncey doesn't want you to play with us." And of course, this dick boyfriend character is just like, "Whatever. I'm not gonna listen to a stupid bear." And then he goes to their bathroom and for some reason pees with the fucking door open. Like, who the fuck does that in a stranger's house? Also, it's just an unnecessary dick move. And the boyfriend himself is just fucking unnecessary dick. But seeing this with the crowd was hilarious. Like, everyone was just like treating this like it was some bad midnight movie. They really just don't make movies like this that are so purposely stupid anymore. Or I guess they do, because watching Imaginaries like that. Anyway, Betty Buckley's character, the old neighbor who just appears randomly and interacts with the plot, it's so forced. She's so fucking cliche, this old lady next door who knows there's some weird spirit fucking activity going on. She remembers the stepmom character, DeWanda Wise, from her youth, and she's like, "Oh, something bad happened to you and your dad. And some reason you're back in this neighborhood." And then we're like, okay. And this is supposed to trigger the plot so we can get some backstory to her character, but it's just so forced. The character literally just appears totally randomly, and then to explain backstory. And then we get to see DeWanda Wise and her father in a couple scenes where he's in a nursing home, and clearly something bad has happened, and we're wondering what happened. And this is honestly one of the more intriguing elements of the film, but it doesn't have a lot more redeeming qualities than that. You know, the rest is so on the nose and obvious, it doesn't really feel like anything, but it is an interesting film idea to, you know, wonder, why is this dad in the hospital? Why is she taking care of him? I think that is like one of the only interesting aspects of the movie, and it's a bit exploitative, honestly. So after we find out that this fucking little girl has basically been talking to air for some reason, this teddy bear's not actually real, their stepmom begins to get concerned, and she's wondering, you know, oh, what is this imaginary friend her daughter's talking to? And this teddy bear, or Chauncey, tries to get the daughter to do evil things, like hurt herself in some weird-ass ritual to open a portal to another dimension or some shit. And I'm not kidding you. I mean, that's like revealed at the end, and, you know, the little girl is given this list. I guess she writes it down because the teddy bear off camera speaks to her and tells her to do these things. And eventually, the little girl does take her teddy bear to the basement. And, you know, in the last sequence of the movie, the teddy bear somehow instructed her to draw a fucking square door on the wall, which I will give the writers credit for. I feel like this is a creepy concept. And in the right hands, it could have worked well. You know, this imaginary spirit trying to get a little girl to open a portal and trap her in there. That is a creepy concept. It's honestly been done before, like in Poltergeist. But in a new era, I just feel like you could put a new twist on it. You could do your own thing. But the movie really doesn't do anything with it. It just lets the girl fucking draw a square on the door. She ends up opening a portal to an imaginary world. And like I mentioned, I thought this was a really creepy idea, but it's just so stupid, especially the way they play the sequence out. And, you know, the room itself is not that creepy. It's like this Escher room with all these random staircases that go nowheres and walls that open up into other doors. And it's really generic looking. It obviously was shot on a soundstage, and I wish they could have dialed up the surrealism. You know, they could have made this so much better, could have made this more creepy and given us more of an existential David Lynch-like atmosphere, but this is fucking Blumhouse, so obviously they are not going that route. Now, the stepmom knows what's up, and the old lady, for some reason, does too. She fucking joins them, which is hilarious, and so does the older sister, who at this point, at the end of the movie, has stopped deciding to be a bitch to her stepmom. She's like, you know what, I've been a bit of a bitch this whole movie, you know, for really dumb reasons, for you not letting me go out with that drinking, creepy, stranger-ass boy next door. So, eventually they team up to rescue the little girl who's gone into this imaginary world, and honestly, at this point, it was just so hard not to laugh. They all go into this imaginary world, try to rescue the little girl who's basically been seduced by the teddy bear. Guys, I was fucking laughing when they reveal the teddy bear's true monstrous form is some ugly CGI spider that really isn't scary. It's just a generic spider for some reason. In horror film, spiders are supposed to be ugly and creepy and scary, but, you know, I guess, like, that's it. That's what you guys came up with. Like, it's just some giant spider. Okay, I guess. And the stepmom rescues the little girl, eventually convinces her that imaginary friends are actually, you know, not really good. Like, no shit, the teddy bear is not fucking good. Like, we get it, it's creepy. And right as they're about to get out, the old lady traps them for some reason in the imaginary world. She's like, oh, here we get to live in our imaginations forever. Let's just stay. And then she just fucking gets killed a second later. Like, what? And her motivation to do this in the first place is so fucking dumb, and they don't really explain it. Even if it feels like a really stupid decision, they honestly could have given her more backstory, maybe explained it more, maybe it would have worked more, but, you know, okay, they just have this fucking Betty Buckley cameo. And now there's some other obstacle for them to overcome, to escape. And in the end, they manage to escape. Basically the formerly bitch stepdaughter escapes with the little girl while the stepmom says, "Leave me behind." It's supposed to be some, sacrifice thing. Like, okay, sure. And eventually they get out, but there's a really fucking dumb reason she agrees to stay. And that's because in this imaginary world, there's like these weird interstellar portals where you can look into the past. And we finally get a glimpse of the stepmom's dad, who's in the care facility. And we see that as a little girl, she also had an imaginary friend. Oh, what a twist. Who tried to make her open one of these portals and tried to trap her in there. However, her dad saw what was going on and, grabbed the stepmom as a kid from one of those portals, and then he himself got trapped, and before he could escape, he's like possessed or something. This is all just a really fucking quick flashback. And I guess they don't really make that clear, except his eyes go black for a sec, and I was rolling my eyes at this point. I'm like, oh boy, another fucking possession trope. Anyway, the dad escapes, but not before he gets possessed. So that's why he's in a care facility, I guess, so we understand that the mom is coming, where she's coming from, and she has childhood trauma, I guess. And they all leaving the fucking random old lady who's dead behind. They finally go home to burn their fucking house down, but not before we see there is a kid talking to the same teddy bear at a hotel where they're staying at, and they nope out of that place really quick, which is a fucking clear nod to Poltergeist, where they see there's a TV and they throw that out. And then we see the kids talking to the same teddy bear who's still alive, I guess. And that's it. That's the end of the movie. It's fucking terrible. No, I was not expecting this to be The Exorcist or The Shining or, a masterpiece like that, but it just should have dialed up the scares. It should have had something more creepy, because honestly, the concept is really good, like I said earlier. And I think with a movie about an endless imaginary world where imaginary friends can fucking lure you in and seduce you, there is so much more potential than what we actually got. They should have made the imaginary world more scary, and they should have had creepy looking creatures, not just that dumbass generic spider, and actual jump scares that, rely on our stupid ludicrous moments. Like, they show the whole reason, and this is a really dumb thing that kind of proves the movie just has random shit in it. The reason that the stepmom married the dad is because his previous wife went crazy at some point, but they don't do anything with that. She just escapes from the mental facility at the beginning and then comes after the kids, but they don't do anything with that. It's just there at the beginning. And honestly, I thought they just should have done more. There should have been, creepier stuff. Maybe she comes back. Maybe there's several imaginary friends, or maybe, the teddy bear is more menacing than just off-screen commanding the girl to do this ritual to open the door. It's very simple, and honestly, it, isn't that much. They had done something where he has her do something to hurt a neighbor, to hurt the stepmom or the sister. That might have affected the plot more. Maybe made it more creepy, made you feel bad for the girl when you find out she's just doing this on the orders of a fucking teddy bear. There are so many more things they could have done to add menace, to add suspense, but instead it just relies on the most easy tropes, and as a result, we get a movie that might be so bad it's good. It's so fucking stupid, it's hard not to laugh watching this. So guys, I don't know what you thought of Imaginary. I thought it was hilariously bad, but let me know what you thought if you even saw it, and I do think it is a movie that is honestly kind of funny to watch in a way. Blumhouse, y'all better start making some better creepy films. At least it's not like The Boogeyman. See, The Boogeyman was really generic. It was just so dumb and not even fun to watch, just kind of boring. This movie, at least, it's kind of fun because there's just some actual stupid shit in this. Anyway, let me know what you guys think about Imaginary, if you even saw it, and thank you all so much for watching this.